Hi, I'm Chris Wardlaw for Auto by Tel, and today we're reviewing the 2014 Volkswagen Passat. Now for 2014, this car gets a brand new turbocharged 4-cylinder engine and a few other enhancements that are pretty important. But first of all, I want to talk about what this car is today. This version of the Passat arrived in 2012. Volkswagen says it designed it specifically for an American audience. In fact, the company spent $5 billion building a new factory, hiring workers, and firing up the assembly line in Chattanooga, Tennessee to build this car. Now, how have Americans responded? This car ranks 9th in its class in terms of overall sales on a monthly basis. It's behind every other midsize sedan you can think of, except maybe the Mazda 6. Now, I don't think that there's any reason that Americans should be passing this car over in favor of some of the heavy hitters in the segment, and this video is going to explain why. Now, if you're looking for something transformative about the 2014 Passat, this is it. This is Volkswagen's new turbocharged 1.8-liter 4-cylinder engine. It replaces the old 2.5-liter 5-cylinder engine that had that grumbling engine character and didn't get very good fuel economy. That's gone. This is in as standard equipment, every Passat. You can still get, though, the turbo diesel TDI. You can still get a V6, but this is going to be in the majority of 2014 Passats. Now, it makes the same horsepower as the old 5-cylinder. It's got 170 horsepower, 184 pound-feet of torque, which is more than the old engine did, and the torque's available across a broader rev range, which means the car feels more energetic, more spirited. Plus, it gets better fuel economy. The old 5-cylinder was rated at 25 miles per gallon in combined driving. This is rated 28. Now, on my test loop, I got 26.8 miles per gallon, a little bit less than what the EPA says. But I'll tell you this, on my drive over here this morning, it was all city. I got just about 20, and then on a drive from Ventura County, California down to Orange County over the weekend, I almost got 37 miles per gallon out of this thing. So I think that in combined driving, you're probably gonna hit the 28. Now, as far as transmissions go, enthusiasts, you should be rejoicing because a 5-speed manual gearbox comes standard. Now, if you don't like that third pedal and you need an automatic, a 6-speed automatic is available with this engine. It's standard in some models, and it's a traditional automatic. It's not the direct shift gearbox, so it's not as herky-jerky as that automated manual transmission is. Still, it is calibrated to upshift fast so that you can maximize your fuel economy. Sometimes that is irritating, and sometimes the engine does clunk heavily into gear, which seems a little unrefined. But for the most part, this is a fantastic powertrain. I really love this engine. Now, to load the Passat's trunk, all you do is you hold the button on the remote, pops all the way open, which is really nice. And as you can see, there's plenty of room in here. Now, the trunk is deep from here to the back seat, but it's shallow in terms of its overall height, which means you can easily slide a full-size suitcase all the way in and get a stroller in right behind it and even some more things. But what you can't do is you can't stack the suitcase this way. It just, there's no way. There's not enough clearance here. So, you know, it all depends really on what you prefer in terms of your trunk configuration. The measurement is 15.9 cubic feet. You can expand cargo space by pulling these to release the seat backs, and then you have to fold them down manually. There's also a center pass-through for skis or longer items. And right along here on the right-hand or on the left-hand side is a very small bin that is deep enough to hold a small bag that you don't want rolling around in the trunk. Now, you'll notice that while these are covered, they could crush anything that gets packed in here too tightly. Something that really bothered my wife. I thought it was hilarious, but you know, I just basically said, "Oh, honey, why don't you just not pack stuff there?" But that seems to be maybe a little too obvious. You grab a little shelf almost. There's one on either side, and one and done, swing it shut. No problem. Now, you may have noticed that I'm not a small guy, but the back seat in the Passat makes me feel like a small guy. I mean, look at how much room I have back here. It's like a limousine. And this driver's seat is set for my comfort. I've got fairly long legs. I'm 6 feet tall. I've got a 33-inch inseam. The seat is set for my comfort, and I've still got all this room in the back. Soft touch upper door materials. You've got this fold down center armrest with a little storage area in it that's lined so things won't rattle. The cup holders aren't terribly deep, but you know, that's all right. You shouldn't be drinking in the back seat anyway, right? Also have rear air vents, which make it a lot more comfortable back here on a hot or a cold day. I really think this is one of the big selling points to the Passat. And for you dads and moms out there who have little kids that ride in forward-facing car seats, I had my 3-year-old in here and her legs were not long enough to kick my seat. It was awesome. So as you can see, the front seat is really roomy too. The SEL Premium test car that I've got has the Sport Comfort front seats. They're 12-way adjustable for the driver and the front passenger. They're extremely comfortable. They're great for long distance drives. And in the SEL Premium model, they're covered with a combination of leather and this synthetic suede. The synthetic suede does preclude the ability to get ventilated seats on this car. So if you live in a muggy, humid climate, you may want to choose another car because Volkswagen does not offer that feature here. There are a few quirks to the overall cabin layout. First of all, the start button is located right here. And it doesn't always react right away. Many times I've gotten in the car, pushed on the brake pedal, pushed that button, nothing happens. So that's one area of refinement that Volkswagen could probably stand to apply some attention. The other area is with this stereo system. When it first boots up in the morning, it takes a really long time for the reversing camera to get going. This morning, I was out of my driveway, down the street, and almost out of my neighborhood before the system was finally booted up. But right now, as you can see, I put it in reverse. The reversing camera comes up fairly quickly. Otherwise, this is a really nicely laid out cabin. I think that the materials up here north of the wood look terrific, very upscale. Below that, kind of cheap, kind of glossy, kind of hard. And that's probably where Volkswagen made the car a little more affordable. All 4 windows offer automatic up-down operation. That's a feature I really like. Sunroof, one twist, and it opens right up. Generally, the Volkswagen's really well done. Okay, we are driving the 2014 Passat 1.8T. It's rush hour in suburbia in LA, and we're gonna jump on the freeway here. Now, this car generates a lot of road noise, and the more road texture there is, the louder it is. All right, down the on-ramp. So, I've got it floored. We just passed 70. You're not gonna have any trouble merging into traffic in this car. So, you know, 170 horsepower in a car this size doesn't really sound all that dramatic, but it's really the torque that makes the difference here. It's spread across a broad portion of the car's rev range. It's very accessible. There is a little bit of turbo lag right when you step on the gas. So if you're making a left-hand turn across traffic and you think you might, be able to beat the car that's coming towards you, you might want to think twice about that. But once that turbocharger spools up and the torque kicks in, it's just a steady stream of refined power all the way up to whatever your cruising speed needs to be. Now, right before we accelerated down the on-ramp, I mentioned that the car generates a lot of road noise. We're on fairly smooth concrete right now. There's a lot of road noise coming up. The more granulated the surface, the louder it is. And if it's really granulated, there are a few little buzzes and rattles and vibrations in here that are a little bit irritating. Now, I don't get to experience a lot of that in California because for the most part our roads are in pretty good shape. But in other parts of the country, especially after the winter most people just had, this is a pretty loud car. It's also, it lacks some isolation. In the tradition of a good German vehicle, it does a great job of communicating texture and a great job of letting you know what's happening at each of the tire's contact patches. But some people don't like that. And what occasionally it feels like is that the ride is somewhat jittery a little bit brittle. But then the way the suspension is tuned, the car kind of bobs a little bit, almost floats sometimes. And that's also a little bit disconcerting. It's almost as though the car is under suspended, like it can't deal with big undulations in the pavement, like drainage channels or dips in the road. So I really feel like Volkswagen, in trying to create a car that's tuned for an American's preference for softer ride quality, may have made a few errors in judgment in terms of the suspension tuning. Now, look, you may disagree, you may love the way this car rides, but I'm not that crazy about it. Handling is a different story. When I took this out into the mountains on my twisty road loop, it did an amazing job. I mean, body roll is remarkably well controlled with this vehicle, and the tires, it's got 18-inch Continental, I think they're Conti Sport contact tires on it. They didn't squeal once. And the result, between the way that the car steers and the way that it accelerates and the way that it shifts, it eggs you on. It's an incredibly engaging driving experience if you decide that you're the type of person who really likes to, every once in a while, have a good time behind the wheel. This car will deliver that. At the start of this review of the 2014 Passat, I talked about how this car is not a very big seller in its segment. People continue to pick all the cars they always have, including the Camry and the Accord. Now, from my perspective, this car deserves greater attention. It's stylish, it's roomy, it's got a big trunk, it's comfortable, it's practical, it's fun to drive most of the time. These are the reasons that owners told J.D. Power that this was the most appealing car in its class last year. Now, on top of that, it's really safe. It gets a 5-star rating from the NHTSA, and it's a top safety pick from the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety. You add free maintenance for 2 years and 24,000 miles. I don't see why you wouldn't at least consider going to test drive a Passat. For Auto by Tel, I'm Chris Wardlaw. I'll see you right back here next time.